Hey y'all, Data Guy here. So, since I did a video yesterday on the biggest announcements from the Snowflake Summit, I thought it was only right and in fitting with their little competition that I also do a video on the latest announcements from the Databricks Summit. I wasn't there, but a couple of my colleagues were, and I just had a little debrief session with them to figure out, hey, what are some of the biggest things in the Databricks ecosystem? Are they just trying to copy Snowflake? Are they competing? Are they getting into AI? And the answer is yes, they're getting into AI, but they're doing it in a slightly different way than Snowflake. So I'm just going to be kind of breaking down some of the biggest announcements and how they relate to you as an end user. And so kind of the first big announcement was, or not really announcement, but just announcement of, hey, this is finally here as the central source of truth for your Databricks instance, is your Unity catalog. And so what the Unity catalog is, just pulled up the docs here to have a reference point, is basically a central way to manage all of your different Databricks workspaces. So a really useful tool for, if you're at a large organization, you're an admin, you have to monitor, do cost attribution, lineage between teams, between data centers, and just kind of having that control plane similar to, the Astro control plane or Airflow. So cool feature. They've really built it out. It's only came out on the market about a year ago, and definitely has a lot more features now. Where now you have unification of things like metadata. You can deal with metadata for structured tables as well as unstructured and ML models. It also logs all your requests, responses, and creates end-to-end lineage without a ton of external setup, which is a great thing to have. And then kind of the big announcement around this was Uniform. And so essentially what that is a way to unify your queries, whether they are in Apache Huddy, Data Lake, or Apache Iceberg. So you don't have to choose a single format. All your queries will be automatically converted. Let's say, hey, I want to write a query for Huddy in that format. You don't have to just lock in that Huddy format. Now you can use those Huddy queries, execute them within your LF data lake. And what this means is that your Delta Lake tables, you can just don't have to change any queries, don't have to change the format. You can just query them like you would already be querying your Apache Huddy, Iceberg. And then under the hood, there is some fancy SDK magic that is actually converting those queries to make them compatible between each other. So the reason why this relates to Unity catalog is this allows you to have, hey, I can look at a Apache Iceberg database the same way I can look at a Delta Lake from that kind of centralized control plane. And so big announcement, something they're super excited about. I personally don't really use those three formats, but I think I can already see kind of the benefits of, hey, now I don't have to write 3 different queries just because I'm in 3 different databases. I can switch between a lot easier. And so another kind of big announcement, again, just kind of keeping with this data lakes format, or the Unity catalog being that centralized layer, is the ability to bring in external data systems now. So like Snowflake, Redshift. So they're, even though they took out ads in the Vegas airport bashing Snowflake, they still partner with them because who can't? And so what this will do is just allow you to discover and query data in those systems, hook them into that Unity catalog, and have that be your single source of truth, even if all your data isn't within Databricks. So very useful thing. And then also there's a Hive Metastore interface now that gives you compatibility to all engines that rely on it. Just kind of a minor thing, but I wanted to make sure I mentioned it before I move into the fun generative AI and ML topics, because they had to have them. So very similarly to Snowflake, and this is why I'm sure Databricks called theirs the AI Summit, Databricks really wants to get in the AI game as saying, hey, your data is already being managed with Databricks. Why don't you also do your ML model training and evaluation and everything within Databricks? So they can manage that entire AI lifecycle, from monitoring, governing, speeding up the process by just having it all in one location where you don't have to bring those files out. You're not dealing with data load times. It's just all already accessible. And so basically kind of taking a similar approach to Snowflake, but just in a slightly different way, where they want to have a lot of integrations with things like AutoML, They just bought Mosaic ML, so they're going to have that, where it's kind of like a lower code approach, whereas Snowflake is taking like the Kubernetes, saying, hey, you can build your own applications in Snowflake, you can write Python. I feel like Databricks kind of taking the approach of like, let's make ML a lot easier for the end user, and kind of take away maybe some of the under the hood customizations, but you have more of a low code approach, so it democratizes AI and model training to a larger set of people. So kind of the big partner for them is MLflow, just like everyone else is using MLflow. So now you have API endpoints, gateway, prompt tools, and just monitoring. So you can train your ML models. You get control, just understanding on, hey, what's actually happening, what kind of access does this ML model need, as well as doing things like sashing predictions, serving repeated prompts, just kind of quality of life improvements. And then we'll see how their Mosaic ML acquisition actually takes place. Obviously, they just acquired it, so they haven't had much cool stuff yet. But they just released a ML Mosaic LL saying, hey, they're the most downloaded LLM yet. And they've got the cost of trading a new model to under $1 million, which I know is bonkers money, but very cheap in the AI scheme of things. And now you also have the ability to, I find it in this article, GPU powered model serving. So just how Snowflake has that kind of partnership with NVIDIA, now you can use GPU to power your models within Databricks. So super useful stuff. They're, I think, a little bit behind in the ML game. They definitely are thinking about it. They're gearing up for the future, but I feel like Snowflake's kind of, just by the nature of, hey, they're running this kind of container service, we can do it right now. And they're just, I don't know. I think they kind of have a better approach. I think Databricks is more thinking about it like, hey, you have this data, let's amplify, make it easier to interact with this data, and maybe build some apps on it. But whereas I feel like Snowflake is really going into kind of app-focused AI, or apps are just data within a pretty interface and using AI to power that. So be exciting to see how this kind of partnership develops. And then also kind of actually one cool little quality of life improvement from Databricks is now you have an English SDK for Apache Spark. So now you can just ask questions in English, and your generative AI engine compiles it into PySpark and SQL code, and then uses that to get whatever data you want. So if you say, hey, give me 20 columns of X table, then it just gives you that. That you can actually be a SQL coder to write it. So again, just democratizing data, kind of in keeping with their whole theme. And well, not finally, but we also have the Databricks Lakehouse apps. And I thought there was going to be a graphic on this page, but there's not, because there is barely anything on this so far. But just wanted to call out some early development partners. You have Retool, drag and drop internal apps, Posit, Kumo AI, Lemony. And essentially what they're doing is the exact same thing as Snowpark Container Services, where now you can run third-party apps inside a Databricks instance in containers. So you don't have to send data between different environments. Don't have to worry about credentials and everything. Your third-party apps are just running directly in there next to your data. Pretty useful. Again, it's very early, but it just makes it easier to build products or apps for internal use within your Databricks instance. So it's right next to your data. And then you also now have Lakehouse IQ. So Lakehouse is only getting bigger and bigger. You're only going to be using it more, where now you can have Lakehouse actually scour all of your data within your data ecosystem, infer that context, usage patterns, organizational structures, and kind of generate an organization for your data. So it can administer things, it can build custom apps that help you interact with your data better. Basically, they've said it can do everything out there, and it's working off of a data warehouse engine that they have rewritten. You have indexless index, which uses AI to predict indexes, determines the best data layout, clustering, lower storage costs. This is something I've heard a million times before. Hey, we have this AI that can come in and it's going to transform your database, and it's going to do all this cool stuff, and it's going to make it way easier to interact, and it's going to automate, all the kind of manual work that typically data engineers hate doing. And we'll see. I've heard it before. I have yet to see a database where I can just drop raw data in it, and it will just organize it for me at the level that is expected for an enterprise-grade data store. But Lakehouse IQ, hey, Databricks is taking the crack at it. Oracle had their autonomous database, which was far from autonomous. Shots fired. But maybe Databricks has the special sauce. I mean, they just spent $1 billion on an AI company. So if that AI company doesn't have some pretty freaking good AI, is it a waste? Is it not? We will see. I know everyone's just throwing money out there in the AI space. So, anyways, that's kind of all the features I had for you today that I want to talk about from the Databricks conference. And yeah, that's really it. I hope you learned something and have a good one. Data Guy out.